Welcome to The Women We Know. I'm your host, Stacey Ferguson, and this podcast is all about real conversations with women in our lives who have stories worth sharing. Not the polished highlight reels, but the real moments, the challenges, the turning points, the courage, the growth, and the wisdom that comes from living a full life. My hope is that somewhere in these conversations, you'll hear something that reminds you that you're not alone and that the women around us are far more extraordinary than we sometimes realise. So wherever you are listening from, settle in, because these are the stories of the women we know. Welcome back to The Women We Know. There is something really special about today's conversation. It feels like a deep breath, a slowing down, a remembering of who you are underneath all the roles you carry. Today, I'm sitting down with Jade Lord. Jade is a mum of 3, a woman living on the land, and someone who has built a life centered around connection, health, and coming home to herself. Through her work in yoga, breathwork, and coaching, she creates spaces for women to reconnect with their bodies, their truth, and the way that they want to live. I have this feeling that this conversation is going to go way beyond what she does. I feel like we're about to go on a journey of the evolution of who she's become. Jade moved from the coast to the outback. She's navigated her identity, belonging, and the pressure of fitting into spaces that didn't always feel aligned. Jade now stands in a place of deep self-trust and intentional living. Through this episode, we'll talk about motherhood, growth, discomfort, and what it really looks like to stop molding yourself to the world around you and instead choose yourself. I know you're going to take so much from this episode, ladies, so grab a cuppa, settle in. Jade, welcome to The Women We Know.
Oh my God. Thank you, Stacey. That was so beautiful. I feel like we could just do a wrap right now, and that was a nice I'll take that sum up of my life so far, and we can just call it quits, I reckon. That was so beautiful. Thank you for that introduction.
You are welcome. I'm so excited to celebrate you today. Jade, you're probably not going to like what's coming next, though. But for the sake of tradition, what would be your karaoke song, your go-to karaoke song, if you absolutely had to get up and sing your little heart out?
If I absolutely had to, because even when I read that question for him, I'm like, oh my God, she's not going to make me sing, is she? Um, but I'm a sucker for salt and pepper, like all the old 90s, salt and pepper, Sonia Dada, Tracy
Yes.
Chapman, any of those real soulful, fun R&B stuff. So um, I would get, oh, I would get drawn to the stage if that came on for sure.
I absolutely love that. Do you think that it's the whole being on stage that makes karaoke a little standoffish for you, or do you think it's being seen, or what do you think it is?
Neither. It is that I know I can't sing. I just don't carry a tune. And I don't want to put that on anybody else, like to have to listen to it. I make my children listen to that, but I just know I can't sing. It's a terrible sound. And so I don't want to put anyone through that.
Sometimes I think that makes the best karaoke, though. If
Good
someone out there,
entertainment.
yeah,
Yeah.
just having the time of their life and just like doesn't even matter. I love it. I absolutely well, I mean, she knows it. My sister's, she's not the greatest singer either, but she just has the best time, and you don't even listen to her voice anymore. You're just too busy watching her energy.
I think that would be me. I'd need a few runs under the belt, I think, before I did that.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to make that my life mission
Yeah.
to get up, to get you up for karaoke.
If you can get Renelle up, then I'll get up. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm so excited for that now. Now that we've established that karaoke is almost a no-go zone, but I feel like there's a bit of wriggle room in there. Let's
Yeah,
get to the
there
real
is.
talk. I would love you to introduce yourself in your own words. What do you do, and who are you in this season of your life?
Yeah. So, as per your intro, I am a mum of 3 children. I have a nearly 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old, so 2 boys and a girl. And I'm married to my husband, Nico, who has grown up out in northwest Queensland, and I met him about 14 years ago. And we've been living on his home property for the last 12, 13 years together. Since building a new career in station life, I've also found a path in yoga, mindfulness, breath work, coaching, and I think it's been really good. One of my top values is health. And I've just been able to carry that from my last chapter, from living on the coast and before I met Nico. And I've just brought that with me out to the bush. And I've really enjoyed sharing that with the more rural and remote communities. So that's sort
Mm.
of where I've been.
I feel like you feel kind of quite grounded in who you are now, and obviously there's a lot more to your story and your journey, and a lot more chapters to your life, and they're all so important. But I feel like this one, you kind of just, I don't know, you feel like, to me, you're in the right place at the right time. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but the energy just feels really nice and grounded. Do you
Mm.
feel like that at the moment, or do you feel like there's still some unfolding to do?
No, I am. I do feel really grounded in this space, in this chapter. It's like I've just started a new chapter, and it's not a coming home, but I've always been working on um myself. I've loved personal growth and discovery and clearing out old wounds or conditioning and patterns and all that. And previous to kids, that was quite a boot camp style growth development journey. And then children come along and they they teach you something that you didn't even know you were putting your hand up for,
Yeah.
and that journey with the three children, I think, has been one of the more powerful. And I actually felt like I became woman when I was
Mm.
first fell pregnant with Jock, my eldest. It was like my body changed, and I just knew that there was this sense of I was bringing life into this world, such a strong responsibility for another human being in my arm or in my womb and then in my arms. And in that journey, I personally felt like becoming woman. And
Mm.
I really loved that. And through that, I could really see as the kids got older, you know, my own fears sort of projecting out onto them, but them not feeling it or carrying it. And so I was like, oh, that's my stuff, not their stuff. So just be careful what I put out onto the kids. And their courage, their bravery, their sincere, authentic selves, have always reminded me of just the beauty of innocence and the beauty of exploring and curiosity and having a go. And there's been so many moments I've just wanted to stop them or to just, again, my own fears of them climbing too high or going too fast. I'm like, no, that's
Mm.
my own stuff. I just need to let them ride that out. Teach them to be careful, teach them to be cautious, teach them the safe way. That was my responsibility, and then it's up to them to have their own journey. And I think now that Ruby is 4 years old and the kids are just a little bit older and more independent, it's given me space to, particularly this last year, more space to come back to me, where
Mm.
my days aren't fully consumed in the care of the children. And I've actually just had some really nice headspace. And I think that's why I feel a lot more grounded. And again, another identity on
Mm.
coming home to myself and coming back to woman and just being, I guess my goal now is just being a really clean role model and guide for my children. And that's the sort of life that, Nico and I really want to build for our little family moving forward.
Yeah. When you talk about coming back into a woman, I'd love to kind of stay with that for a moment because just that language around that, and when I hear you say that, I feel like you're not just the mum, or you're not just the wife, or you're not just the worker, or whatever it is. You know
Mm.
you're a woman, and you're able to come back to that. I would love to know what that actually looks like for you now.
Mm. That's a tough one because she's different, she's
Yeah.
always uh over the last, from 10 years ago to 5 years ago to now, she's different. I guess the woman I have come back to, or that I'm really proud of, I'm going to say, because it's taken a lot of work and a lot of deep thought, a lot of deep conversations, and a lot of sitting with myself to find this woman and to be really comfortable with her. And I guess in throughout my whole journey, I've always been shown and taught to love yourself. You
Mm.
know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You need to honor yourself and to love yourself. And I can still, today, and I think this is one message I really want to challenge the listeners on, and also maybe take home as a task, is like being able to look at yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you. And that can be so hard and so challenging. And once upon a time, it absolutely was for me too. But I think if you can't look at yourself and just acknowledge the woman and the journey and the every step that she's taken to get to this point, and just be proud of that woman, even for the ups and downs and the mistakes and the lessons along the way. But you're here and you're beautiful, and you are, everyone has a story and a journey and has a chance to make an impact on the world. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. We watch so many other people and we listen to other people and we admire them, and we put so much time and energy into learning and growing in different areas. But to spend that time and energy on self, and in even just a couple of minutes a day of just acknowledging um, some positive traits about yourself, or looking at yourself in the mirror and saying I love you and repeating it over and over again, the more I feel like that brings you back to a really powerful centered self, and that queen within you, because that's in every woman, and if there's men out there, then that's the king in you.
Mm.
And that woman or that man is um, more than enough. And when in that space, I think can make the best decisions for themselves and or for their partner, and for their path forward. And it's funny that word decisions. I've just been sitting with this. So I'm probably going to go a bit off topic. Sorry for the moment.
Go for it.
But it's like, before I met Nico, or before, you have a long term partner, there's just yourself, and you
Mhm.
make a decision. When you make those decisions, like, hey, I'm going to go out clubbing tonight, and you just make the decision and you go with it. Or hey, I'm going to book an overseas trip this winter, and I'm going to go for it because you can, because the only person you're responsible for is yourself. And the decisions, like, you get an idea, and it's like you have the space to be able to run with it. Then you get a long-term partner, and when you get these ideas, and to make those decisions, you suddenly have to consider your significant other in your life. And then adding on to that, you bring children into it, and making a decision for self becomes so much harder. And that's when we tend to stop honoring ourselves, or putting our own personal needs to the side. And
Mm.
because we put the children first, or we put our husband's needs first and before our own. And I think I'm just processing this myself over the last week or two, so I'm still on the journey. But I think we as women are pretty good at putting others before our own needs. And long term, I believe that can have a negative flow on effect to our sense of self and our identity and our value and our worth, because other people then expect it from us as well, don't they? When we keep saying yes to them, they almost expect it. And so when we go and step out and say, nope, I need to do this for me, this feels right, I still love you and support you, I'm here for you, it
Mm.
causes a bit of a shockwave through the system, and it's hard for them to see. However, I think coming out the other side, it's so much more powerful, and that's that powerful centered woman and queen that I guess we were talking about just earlier, is that we need to honor ourselves. One, because that's the person that, our partners fell in love with. But two, that's the best role model, I believe, for our children, and showing them about putting our own needs first. And that's a balance and that's a juggle, because when you've got a partner and children, you've got multiple needs to take care of. But I think never give up on or completely let go of your own personal needs, because um, if I go back to your question, I think where I'm sitting now in this chapter of my life, I've really had that space to come back and honor me and go, okay, what are my needs in this chapter of my life? What are my values? Because your values change over time. And how can I be, with my family in that sense? And there's been some really big adjustments in our family dynamic over the last 12 months. But if I look into the future, I um, I think I'm proud of where we're at, and for the role models and the family lifestyle and dynamic that we are creating for our children, and how I want to show up for my children.
Yeah, I can feel that pride and that groundness that you've got. I feel like there's such a theme to season 2 at the moment about, the first episode of season 2, we talked a lot about putting yourself first and not pouring from an empty cup, and
Yeah.
you just touched on it, and I feel like it's such an important message. It's like that. Um, when you're in an airplane that's crashing or whatever, and you're told to put on your own mask first,
Mm,
it's so hard to do in the moment, to put yourself first without and learning to not think that it's selfish as well. I think
yeah.
that that's been my biggest lesson, and I'm still learning that it's okay to put myself first, to be able to pour out, and I show up 100% better when I have done something for myself, or I am listening to what I need and my needs, and then I can
Mm,
pour out to my family. Some of
yeah.
our friends talk about the triangle, and we often have it upside down, and we
Mm,
have our kids up the top, and then our partners, and then ourselves down the bottom. In reality, it should be us on the top, and then our partners, and then our children, and somewhere along the way, we as mothers kind of just shuffle ourselves back down to the bottom. And
yeah.
I just love that you are in this place at the moment, and you're talking about coming back to woman, and being able to be that example for your children as well. I think it's
Mm,
just absolutely beautiful, and I would love to know what kind of makes you feel um, more like yourself, and kind of that connection with yourself. What's
mm.
your kind of go-to feel like you are filling your own cup up?
Yeah, I'm still sort of playing with this in this new chapter, because for me it's definitely been slowing down, being more present and more available for our children. I've actually really enjoyed being a mother, but in a different way, sort of thing. Like it's again, being part of their day, being a part of their experiences, and doing things together as a family. So definitely slowing down. The first 10 years of mine and Nico's relationship, we were in building and creation mode, and very busy lifestyle, and lots of moving around. And then the kids came in, and we kept building and creating. And that for me as much as I loved the lifestyle and loved being a mum, it was burning me out because I
Mm.
just wasn't able to juggle so much. And like over time, I just felt so out of alignment because I wasn't creating that space where I could just honor myself and just be slow. Just I actually just like solitude. I need solitude to re-energize. And so that's why I went and created Yoga Rights Outback and brought yoga and mindfulness and breath work to the community because I knew that that was something that I needed as a busy mum on the land, helping run a cattle station. And there's so many women that are juggling these multiple hats. And it's funny, once I put it out to the communities and the women that were showing up and who didn't know they needed it until they got there, until the end of it, that just that 1 hour where they could gift themselves also that space. And I know that it challenged through conversations. I know it was a challenge for them to say, "Hey, I'm going into town to do yoga." Yeah,
Mm.
or I'm going to go do something for myself and I'm going to have a cup of coffee afterwards. I'm just going to chat with the girls and then I'll go do the lick run or then I'll go pick up the stalls or whatever it may be. That initially was really hard to shift that old pattern, that old conditioning, and stand true that that's something that they actually needed and to voice that. And that's been a really beautiful journey because one, that was something that I needed, and I could see that it was a need and a desire for other women as well. So that's been something that I think I've been able to share, and I've really enjoyed that journey. It's connecting with the women on the land through that over the years. I'm not teaching at the moment. I'm doing more personal one-on-one coaching, and I'm still learning. Like I still love another value of mine is like that growth and expansion. And I'm just learning a new form of working with the subconscious mind. And again, until I've gone through it, I can't support anyone unless I've gone through it myself. And so
Mm.
the journey that I'm on right now is actually just more self-discovery and learning more about myself and then how I'm able to support other men and women in the same way. And I think with being a mum to the ages of my children now um, and just doing this learning for myself is it's nice and slow. It's peaceful, it's gentle, and it's really supportive. And I think that's why I feel so grounded and calm is
Mm.
there's a really nice structure and routine in my days and weeks, which, as you know, living on the land and running multiple cattle stations, there's a lot of balls to juggle.
Yeah, and there's not much structure in that. You kind of have to go with what's happening at the
Yeah,
time.
go with the
So,
flow. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I love that when you talk about this, it feels like just being able to create that space in your life to be true to yourself and, actually be okay and hear yourself. And
Mm,
I think when you go back to talking about yoga rights and your coaching and then the women that would come in from the land and uh, learn how to be okay with putting themselves first and doing yoga and having the cup of coffee and the catch up afterwards. What do you think happens for women when they actually give themselves that permission to do that? I could imagine you would have seen a lot of shifts in a lot of women
mm,
throughout your time doing yoga and going into town and being able to do that with these women of the land that like you said had to kind of give themselves permission to be able to do that. What do you think happens to them
mm.
or for
First thing
them?
that comes, yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, and I guess I felt or sensed this in the women myself, is there's a softness. It brings out that feminine side of them, and those that were joining me from from the properties and working, it's quite a masculine world, and it's a very hard and fast environment. And as like I said, they if it wasn't for that 1 or 2 hours a week of yoga and mindfulness, then I don't know where they would have created that space for themselves. And
Mm.
it just like I said, it just softens them. It brings them back into their feminine energy. It rebalances them. It calibrates them. And you know what? That's what our men want to see and feel is that feminine side. And it's 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 not an excuse, but it's so easy when you're working with them in a mustering camp or all day in the yards and that um, to come home and not that you can't be feminine in that workspace, but it's probably a lot harder to showcase it, and to sit in it. But I know that when we moved to a new property, we bought a new property, and we had our staff in our home for breakfast, smoko, lunch, and dinner every day for about 12, at least 12 months. And I made a point that when I came home from whatever the workday was, I would have a shower and I would put on a summer dress or just something feminine and flowy. I wouldn't go to dinner in my jeans or my work clothes or just
Mm,
that was my way of intentionally shifting from the masculine energy into my feminine energy, because that was when I got to sat down with dinner with my husband and my children, and yes, the workers, but to also see that other side of me and honor that
mm,
other side of me, and that I didn't have to stay in that masculine energy. And also how beautiful for our relationship too, because your husband wants to feel and see that feminine side that they once fell in love with. And I think through my teachings and through our conversations in circle, it was about them reconnecting with that feminine side and honoring that and being okay with it and just playing with it, So we had many discussions. So for me, like I said, it was the shower and shifting into different clothing. But for others, it was
mm.
something else. We all had our own thing, and just playing with it and seeing how that played out in your day, because it's a choice, isn't it, on how we are responsible for how we want to show up to our partners and our children or to work. And just, it was just about learning new tools on, yeah, shifting between the energies.
I love that. And something as simple as that, as going for a shower and putting on a nice flowy dress to have dinner, to step
Yeah.
back into that feminine. It's something so simple but so powerful. And I love that you shared that, because it kind of opens up that um, opportunity for someone else to that might be in a masculine role, or
Mm,
that sort of stuff, to be able to go, where can I make this small little shift that I can step back into that feminine? Because especially even as mums, though, I feel like, and working mums, I feel like there you can just get into that grind that then is
yeah.
quite masculine. So I love that little reminder of
Mm,
how simple it can be, but also how powerful that can be.
mm.
Um, yeah, I love that. So thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
Jade, you just briefly touched on that you recently stepped deeper into your work and you've become certified in NTT, which is neurotransformation therapy.
Mm.
Is that right? That's the right wording?
Yep, that's correct.
Yep. I know that this work is, I don't know much about this work, but I know that this work seems to be more gentle and it's subconscious based approach. Can you share a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, exactly. So the neurotransformation therapy is, um, it looks into values and archetypes and human needs, all the things that, myself, and I know you've had Renelle and Sally and Tan on the episodes previously, all that work is so beautiful and so congruent with the NTT stuff, but it is going a little bit deeper into the subconscious mind and working with limiting beliefs and the stories, the limiting emotions that we carry, that we say to ourselves and we don't even realize, but how that impacts and has an effect on our day to day, in our relationships, in our career, our sense of self, and all that. And I think, like I said, the personal growth journey doesn't need to be um, traumatic, and it doesn't need to be hard and scary. It can get a little bit uncomfortable, but I think once you can move through and trust the process and trust the person who is guiding you, and once you come through that uncomfortableness onto the other side, that sense of freeness and clarity and peace that you feel, it's just so worth it. And you go, geez, why was I holding on to that? Why was I carrying that? Why was I continually telling myself that? And like I said, this particular work for me, out of all of it, it does feel a lot softer and more gentle. And I love the way that I've been guiding. I can guide people through this work, and just hear them and feel them come through to the other side and just feel a bit more conscious and aware and awakened by it's really hard to explain, but it's like you don't realize what you're telling yourself until you just start having conversations with someone in like myself or who's been doing this work, and you realize just how easy it is to shift that language, shift that thought pattern, or
Mm.
shift the conditioning from our childhood or whatever it is. That it's all possible. It's a process, like I said, that I just am really enjoying taking people through, because um, it's soft, and it's really powerful, and I've seen really beautiful results. So I'm enjoying that. And because I've gone through it myself, and so I know what it feels like to go through it. And I've been doing personal development for like 10, 12, 15 years now. And yeah, I'm just enjoying this space in working with people.
It sounds like you've landed,
Mm,
in a really, this work kind of just sounds like you in a bubble. Like it
yeah,
just sounds like it's a perfect extension of what you are already doing. Or I know
yeah.
you said that you're not practicing, or not teaching yoga at the moment and that sort of stuff, but it just feels like this beautiful extension. I'd love to know what drew you to it and how kind of you came across it, and what feels so different about this way of work. I know you touched on it being gentler
Yeah.
for you.
So I know you have, or Sally and Renelle, and
Hmm.
you've also they've been on the podcast with you. And Sally and Renelle and I have been on many personal growth workshops over the years, and deep dived into a lot of work together and separately. And a few years ago, we started running women's retreats, and the main focus was archetypes, human needs, values, uh, women coming home to themselves, finding their true identity. So they have guided me. They sort of opened me up into this NTT work, because they were sort of moving through it themselves. And I think in order for us to work together moving forward in the retreat space, but even in our conversations and supporting ourselves and each other through our own lives, these are just more tools, that we have in our tool bag now. And we've got so many now that, like you said, it's just a beautiful extension to what we've already been working on. So Sally and Renelle have done the work, and then they invited me along to do the practitioner course. So I did that just earlier this year, and the three of us are actually going to do our masters in about another month's time. So, and it just takes all the work that we've done previously to a whole new level and a much deeper level. But
Mm.
again, we go through it first. And I think
Yeah.
until we've gone through it and understand the process and how to really fully support people through it, then I wouldn't go out there and guide people through it. However, I feel so comfortable and so okay and confident in what I've already learned today, that I just know this next chapter in the masters will be even more powerful and more beautiful to share with people. So, and again, I think moving forward in the grander scheme of things, we really hope to bring it more into a workshop and retreat space.
Yeah. I really love that. And I love, like you mentioned, like I mentioned, that it's just this extension of the journey that you've already been on. You're learning to hear yourself and trust yourself, and now even create even more space for women to do the same. And I really feels like that deserves to be celebrated. How does it feel to know that, you're kind of out there and you're going through it, and you're doing the work, but then you have this beautiful opportunity to be able to share it and help other women.
Yeah, that for me is what gets me up out of bed,
Mm,
that sense of service. And because I think because like you said, I've been through it myself and I just know how much of a change and how positive impact it's had on my own life. And I just so wish that upon anyone and everyone because we don't have to have had traumatic experiences in our childhood to have a limiting belief about our identity or how smart we are or how, I don't know, good we are. So I think from a young age, I've always had a sense of wanting to help people and to be of service and to be a humanitarian of some sort,
mm,
and my journey has just the doors have just kept opening and
yeah.
leading me down this path. And I love that I have trusted the process. I've followed my intuition. I've followed the guides and said yes to things that I didn't even know what I was saying yes to.
Mhm.
But I think the more women I get to speak to and the more women I see impacted by this beautiful work that, myself and Sally Rennell and Tan all get to do, the more, you know, the greater the ripple effect because it goes home, not only for themselves, but it goes back into their partner and into their children, into the next generation, into the legacy that we are leaving, and also I know this has been spoken about in your previous podcast, but just stopping the pattern,
Mhm.
maybe the limiting pattern or I don't want to say negative, but just creating a new pattern for our family and choosing a new way of being that today doesn't have to be the same as our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, that we have the option and the choice to choose how we want to show up as a woman, how we want to show up as a wife and as a mother and as a businesswoman, and how we choose to do this life. We only get this one life with these beautiful children that we've created and this husband that, we've crossed paths with. And that brings a tear to my eye when I think about that. It really jerks on my heartstrings to think,
Mm.
oh my God, I've only got this short amount of time with these little people, and then I may never see them again, or feel their little souls again. And so I just want to make this life count, and I want to make it so authentically true, and I want them to really excel in their own way. And anyone who's got children can see the different personalities and the different needs and the different desires and the different skill set that they all have. And I don't want to box them. I don't want to say that, well, because we did it this way, you have to do it this way. I want to be able to guide them to stand true to who they are and believe in themselves. And, sometimes Sally Rennell said this beautifully, and I know I reference them a lot, but do what's right, not what's easy. And
Mm.
that has been a huge lesson in my life as well. And sometimes we need to just sit with that, and that may be uncomfortable, but um, yeah, I think that's what inspires me and motivates me to keep reaching out to women and keep doing the work myself because I just know that it's powerful and we're creating a change and a ripple effect in this world that will be um, so much more centered and loving and supportive moving forward.
Yeah, and yeah, almost I have a tear in my eye as well because just the way that you were able to word that just so beautifully, and I just feel so grateful to be in a world where there are women like you that are out there to be of service to women and to show the possibilities. Like I feel so uh yeah, grateful is the only word I can think of at the moment because it's just, there's so much out there and you said that you didn't want to use the word negativity, but what came to my word when you were saying that like was like scarcity, but more look at the opportunities that are out there and to be
Yeah.
going for the opportunities or the positive side of things instead of and flipping that narrative to not be the negatives and
Mm.
the not what if this happens, it's what if this happens, like the
Yeah.
excitement of yeah.
Yeah.
So I really do, I feel grateful to have to be able to share and celebrate your journey, but in this then be able to give other women permission to know that there are other ways,
Mm.
and not to say that the lives that they're living aren't perfect the way that they are, but if they're not and they feel the itch for something more, that there is that opportunity, and it's
Yeah.
up to them to go after it and find what works for them, and it may not be the yoga or the breath work or the NTT. It may be something completely different, but
Yeah.
I think the end game is this generational change, and to be able to say, well, just because we done it that way, we don't need to do it that way. Or maybe there are things that we do continue to do because they do work really well. But
Yeah. There's
yeah,
some
I just
beautiful legacies out there that and traditions out there um,
mm,
that. But then again, it's that personal choice. It's ensuring that it aligns with you,
yeah,
um, and not just doing it for the sake of doing it. Do it because it feels right to do it, and because
yes,
when you do it that way, it's so much more sustainable, and the energy behind it is so much cleaner when you're doing it because it's true to who you are and the way that you want to show up, rather than just
mm,
doing it because somebody else did it that way, you know?
yeah, yeah, and when you do it in your right way, whichever way that might be, then it doesn't feel or shouldn't feel clunky or hard.
No,
It should just
no.
feel, uh, and not saying that there aren't hard moments, but for the most part, there should be this nice flow to it when you feel like when you're doing the things that are in alignment to you.
Mm.
Yeah. I want to. Well, I feel like we could like go on a whole journey down here, but
Yeah,
I want to. I'm conscious of time and mindful of time, and I want to go back just briefly to the life before what you were living now. You mentioned that you moved from the coast to the outback, which would have been huge. I know that I done that when I was 14. So then to do that as an adult,
mm.
I know that would have been massive. What did that actually feel like for you to do that move to go, okay, I'm here on the coast and now I'm going to move into, onto the land, which, yeah, which was that brand new for you, that whole idea, and what did it actually feel like?
Yeah, I think growing up I had relatives in the country, just in New South Wales. And so I have always loved going and spending time on their cattle and sheep property and spending time in the community with them. So I always had a sense of a country or rural community. And so I
Mm.
always knew I'd end up in the bush. I didn't think it would be as rural and remote as far northwest Queensland. I was kind of hoping something a bit more coastal where I could get to the beach more often, but I wasn't very clear in my desire. But when I when I decided to take that leap and I met Nico and moved out to the station with him, apart from being able to ride a motorbike, I was absolutely brand new to mustering cattle, processing cattle, fixing troughs, welding, servicing bikes and vehicles, you name it, everything that you need because you have to be so self-sufficient on the land.
Mm,
And that was all very new. And I felt so useless for such a long time. And coming from my previous job where I was quite good at it, I was very successful and in control, to then moving to the land and I really just had to start all over again. And I can't, like I said, the journey of personal growth, if it's not children, it's a new career. And
mm.
I, I couldn't tell you the number of times I've cried in a paddock or kicked a paling or the bloody cockies gate I couldn't get shut or the cattle that got away from me or whatever it may have been. But it's in those moments I would sit there and I'd cry and sulk for a moment. But then at the end of the day, like, no one else was going to rescue me and no one else was going to do it for me. So you just, you figure out a way and you got to get really smart about utilizing different tools or coming up with a new solution to get the trough to work or to get water or to put a fence up or whatever it may be. And you have, yeah, you have a couple of failures, but then you have a couple of wins and it's like, oh, I was really bad initially at acknowledging my wins and
Mm.
to come home at the end of the day and just say, "Hey, I just walked 500 head on my own from A to B or whatever it was." And to it took me a while to get to that point, but then the more I did it, the more confident I became in the job
Mm.
and then it became more enjoyable. But in the beginning, it was tough. It was really tough for me. But like anything, the little wins and actually getting through it and on my own as well was a nice little journey that I had out in the paddock with some dogs and some cattle and on a hot 45 degrees day or whatever it may have been. So yeah, that was um that was definitely a journey in itself. And I think over the years now I feel very confident in being able to support my husband in running the cattle stations and just being a part of the conversations and about a part of the strategic direction and decisions and not that it's something that I thought I would do as a career, but just more to be able to support my husband that when he talks about it, because it's his life and it's his purpose and passion, running these cattle stations. But I'm at least knowledgeable and aware enough that I can just ask questions or
Mm.
just give him another suggestion and just be a part of the journey with him. And that has felt really nice to be able to do that together.
Yeah. It's so nice to hear you talk about how that contrast of the coastal life to the country life, and then but being able to kind of be able to teach yourself how to show up and just to be there for your husband to be able to so he can come home,
Mm,
or you can go out together working, and it's just it's a really nice again reminder of what's possible if we kind of let ourselves and if we're open to
yeah.
the learnings. And yeah,
And
yeah.
and it was hard and I could have easily just thrown the towel in and said, look, I'm not doing this. It's too hard.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sometimes an option these days, isn't it? But it's a choice and it's been so much more beneficial with me just sticking with it and going through the toughness. And that's what I said earlier about getting comfortable in the uncomfortable and
Hmm.
actually growing through it, working your way through it, and then like upskilling yourself, learning more about
Yeah.
yourself, realizing that you have the strength and ability and the skill to do it if you just, back yourself or just sit with it a bit longer. And it's not to say you can't ask for help and you can't ask questions, but I think we all have the ability and we all have the answers within ourselves
Mm.
to move through this life.
Yeah, I feel like you just jumped the gun a little bit there and answer my next question.
Oh, did I? There you go.
Well, no, I'll let you answer it in your own words, but I I feel like there's this just strong thread of kind of like coming home to yourself, understanding yourself, being woman, and the way that you just feel so grounded and real. I was going to ask if there was a woman listening right now and maybe molding herself to kind of fit in, or feeling a little bit disconnected, or leaning into this conversation. What would you want her to know?
Hmm. I think, yeah, maybe I did jump the gun. Like, you do have, I think everybody has the ability and the power within themselves. I think the more we can learn to understand ourselves, who we truly are, understanding our archetype, understanding our love language, understanding our human needs and our values, particularly, having that aligned, you can really move through any challenge in life because you can see it you'll be able to look at it from an outsider's perspective. And so I guess I'm going off track, but I guess my message is spend the time learning to love yourself, learning to understand yourself, accept yourself, and love yourself. Because once you do, life does become a lot easier and will flow, and you will stop saying yes to things you want to say no to, and you'll start saying no to things that you said yes to, and you won't feel the guilt, you won't feel the pressures. It will just feel absolutely right, and you're not carrying this extra baggage or weight on your shoulders anymore. So my message really is to, yeah, just to spend time reconnecting with yourself and building that identity that you are so proud of to look at in the mirror and to walk out into the world and to have a voice and be authentically yourself unapologetically, because why not? You are who you are. So just, yeah, I would love for everyone to just really honor and love themselves.
I love how you speak so beautifully about women sort of living more wholeheartedly and really owning who they are and leaning into themselves and loving themselves. What do you think really shifts for a woman, not only for a woman, but for her family, for her relationships, even her community, when she fully kind of stands in that and learns to accept herself? We talked earlier about the ripple effect and all of that sort of
Mm.
stuff. What do you think really shifts?
I think the pressures of being somebody in this world, whether it's through our career, our job choice, the circle of friends, family dynamics, it's so easy to be molded, or to mold ourselves
Mm-hmm.
into to fit in, to be accepted. And it's just so it becomes draining. We can't live like that forever. I just, like I said, it's not sustainable, and you will burn yourself out. And so I think the more that we can learn about ourselves, the more at peace and more enjoyable life becomes, the day to day becomes. And I think, life's not meant to be all hard. It Like, the challenges are there for us to grow through and to learn from 100%. I think challenges and some struggles, are presented for a reason, like that's the next little hurdle for us, our next growth.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be all hard. And I think the more that we come back to self, the more strength, clarity, centeredness, the energy, the light within is felt. And it's not just, one for yourself, but the people around you. When people walk into a room and they have that energy, that real clean energy about them, and you're naturally drawn to them and attracted to them, and you feel the negative energies of people as well. And so make a choice, who do you want to be and how do you want to show up, and which one feels nicer, which one feels more comfortable, and weigh
Mm-hmm.
it up in your hands. And then it's your responsibility. No one else can make that shift within except for yourself. And it doesn't have to be a hard journey either. But I think you need to make that decision that you are ready to change, even just one small thing at a time. And you're like, life becomes so much more enjoyable.
I can feel that in talking with you, that confidence that you have in that. Jade, before we finish up, I have to ask, who is a woman that deserves to be celebrated, heard, or seen?
I love this question. I love that you do this. So, the woman that came to mind for me is this beautiful woman who I met through my yoga classes in Richmond. She's a community member. And from the first day that I met her, she has a beautiful energy about her. She's very open, very thoughtful, very, like I said, community minded, has a great sense of health and well being as well. So we really connected. And I know she is already creating that positive ripple effect in her world. And she herself has had her own struggles and challenges. And I see her just conquering them and moving through them in just such the most inspirational way. And I'd love for her to share her story. And that is Liz Tate.
I love the way that you spoke about her. She sounds like a woman that definitely deserves a seat on this podcast. And I would, if she would be open to it, I would love to reach
Yeah,
out to her. So thank you for sharing that.
my
Jade,
pleasure.
this conversation it's not only been beautiful, but it's been so calming, and I just feel like I'm just like just you just bring this beautiful energy, but it's been so like powerful as well. And I really want to thank you for sharing your journey with us, and thank you for your honesty and your presence and the way that you've just shown up today. I know that there would be so many women listening who see themselves in parts of this, or maybe feel like they just want to lean in a little bit further and maybe have a little bit more permission to come home to who they are.
Oh, thank you, Stacey. It was really lovely to sit here and just have this conversation. Thank you for allowing me to share my journey.
Thanks, Jade. And that's a wrap on today's conversation with one of the women we know. If something in today's episode resonated with you, I'd love if you shared it with a woman in your life who might love it too. And don't forget to follow along so you never miss a conversation. And if there's a woman in your life that you know has a story worth sharing, I would love for you to nominate her at The Women We Know on Instagram or Facebook. Or shoot me an email at thewomenweknowpodcast@gmail.com. There's a dot in between each of the words, the.women.we.know.podcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening and being part of this community that celebrates her story, her resilience, her honesty, her triumph, her challenges, her life. We celebrate her.